Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the build of the Aviation Design Diamond. This is going to be the last video in the actual construction of the plane, other than the setup of the lights and installation of the lights and the smoke system setup. So before we get any further, let's roll that intro. All right, guys, we got a bunch of awesome things to take care of in this video. First, and the coolest thing, because it makes lots of noise, is we're going to do an engine run for the first time in the plane, which is awesome. My neighbors are never happy about that, but that's okay. We have some servos showing up for the ailerons and the elevators. We're going to switch the servos out from the 8455s to 8911s from JR. So those will be switched. That's not really a big thing, but I'll just show you guys, I guess, a few shots of that. We have all the programming to do. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but I will kind of show you the ins and outs of a few things that I'm going to highlight. We have the gyro programming and just some miscellaneous stuff, right, to finish up this plane. So thanks for tuning into the videos, guys. If you have any questions or comments, list them down below. Contact information is down below. Feel free to email me. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, I don't know what you're waiting for, but hit that subscribe button down below and let's hop in. All right, guys, so we've got the turbine all set up in the garage. I got my ear protection on, got the air compressor set up, fire extinguisher, and we're going to do the very first run of this turbine. I have learned the turbine or the system to the radio, so we're going to take it a little bit slow as we go through things, but hopefully this goes well. All right, guys, successful turbine run, nothing abnormal. Everything worked just like it's supposed to. I've covered this in my turbine installation videos and other videos. Basically, after you learn the system, you let it settle at idle, and then you're slowly throttling up to max throttle. You're letting it sit at max throttle, and then you're slowly bringing it back down. Now, one of the things that I've talked about in my turbine installation videos is setting the max pump power on the KingTech engines. Now, this engine, I have done it already because of the test and review videos that I did for this engine. So at max throttle, my pump power was right at 400, like 402. So if we add 20% to that, that brings us to 480. When I went into the pump power section to adjust it, I had already adjusted it to 480 on my test stand, and that's done. So I did drop the decel delay from 15 to 12, just because it was high, but it's fine. So those are the things we're going to check when we do the maiden, and we're going to go through the things on the aircraft, like the turbine installation, more fully before we actually do the maiden. But everything worked out well. When I did put the cover back on the rear part of the plane, there is a ton of air moving through this airframe. I mean, they all have lots of air moving through there, but like you can just sitting here with the turbine at full, you could feel the draft being pulled out. So those cheater holes that come on the bottom of this this Diamond aircraft would absolutely be necessary with these bigger engines. So anyways, happy, everything worked out good. All right, guys, so as I've mentioned, I'm switching out the servos. Now, these are the servos that were in the elevators and ailerons, and this is what we're going to. So the 8911 coreless, we're taking the 8455s out. These are the ones that I put on the flaps originally. So I'm just switching all these out. It's a pretty straightforward switch. The only downside is the case of the servo is a little bit longer. The sizing, the spacing side to side is exactly the same, but the 8911s are a little bit longer case, which you can see there. So that actually doesn't affect the mounting at all, other than where this servo mount goes into the airframe. There's a fairly big piece of wood on the edge here, and we just need to take that piece of wood, cut it on an angle. So I just grind it down on an angle. Same thing I did on the flaps, and that allows the servo to fit in there. So all I'm doing is going through, switching these servos out on those 4 surfaces, just plugging it into the X-Bus port of a spare receiver and programming it just like I did the other servos. So that's what's happening on the elevators and ailerons. It's been quite a process getting all of this stuff set up, but everything is programmed. So we basically, I know this is going to look fairly straightforward, but we've got our ailerons programmed with servo travel as well too. Everything's programmed as per the manual as far as travel goes. One little thing for you guys, if you're not aware of this, I only learned this a few years ago, but when it says root, or when you're adjusting 15 millimeters at the root is always at the base, right? So on the aileron, it would be here, not at the tip. On the flap, this would be the root, not that. In the aviation design manual, it actually tells you on the flap, as an example, it says 80 millimeters at the aileron or 150 millimeters at the root. Okay, so ailerons are done. Elevators are done. Rudder's done. So there's no expo that I've programmed in yet, but we will do that before we fly it. And the flaps. Now the flaps are crazy on this thing. I'll talk a little bit about what I had to do with the flaps. So there's no flaps, flaps off. Now you want this to be a little bit loose, so there's just a little bit of play. So the servo's not fighting the surface up. Not much, just a hair of play. Okay, takeoff flaps, about 30 millimeters of travel, roughly. I think it's a little bit more. Full flaps, there. That may be hard to see because there's not a solid background, but it's like a wall. It's crazy. Look at those flaps. I tell you, when this thing is coming in for a landing and you put those flaps on, that will slow this thing down like crazy. Here's another shot from the top of full flaps. So that's pretty cool. That's going to be fun to fly with the flaps like that. Kind of reminds me of the Tudor when the flaps come down. They're not that steep, but they're like about an angle like this. So yeah, it's going to be awesome. Really, really looking forward to that. So all the programming's done except adding the expo. Now, what did I do with the flap servos? Now, one of the cool things about X-Bus is you have so many options when you're adjusting the servos. So in the X-Bus menu, you can adjust the amount of angle you have. So there's 2 options, 120 degrees, which would be something like this, right? Or you can switch it to 180 degrees, which would be obviously 180 degrees, half of a circle. So I put the travel at 180 degrees because previously at 120, the most flap I could get was about here. Now, I didn't have those servos plugged into the X-Bus ports, so I had to do a little bit of rechanging to get that different setting, and now the flap servos are plugged into the X-Bus ports. All of the other servos are not, because they're run through the PowerBox gyro, so they can't be set up with X-Bus, and this receiver only has 3 X-Bus ports. So it's pretty straightforward what I did here. I had to open up my X-Bus ports. So previously this was my X-Bus ports right here. Okay, so we had brake, smoke, lights 1, lights 2. So what I did was I moved the flap channel to 12 and 13. So we have left flap, right flap. And then I took those 2 items and put them on the previous flap channels, which was 7, which is now brake, and 11, which is smoke. So all that did was put these 2 items, originally brake and smoke, on the PWM channels, and then it took those flap servos and put them on the X-Bus channels, which allowed me to have all the different options for adjustments on the servos, which made getting the flap travel easy. All right, I got to be careful where I'm videoing here because I don't want to give anything away on the light install. We have some cool things coming with the light install, guys. All right, guys, I've gone in and done my initial programming of the gyro. I've done a video specifically on 3Xtra. I've programmed the Gyro 1E for the nose wheel, and all that is needed now is to go flying with this thing. All right, guys, that is effectively, I think, the end of the build portion of the Diamond aircraft. I can't think of anything else that I'm going to be doing to this aircraft for the actual build itself. We are basically done. Now, when I do the maiden of this plane, I have a little bit of a different idea in mind, and hopefully this is going to allow you guys to get something out of this. So what I'm planning on doing during the maiden, and of course that could be about 3-4 months from now, is I'm going to put my lapel mic on, and I'm going to walk you guys and talk you guys through the maiden. So it'll be a way more in-depth maiden than what's normally done. So we're going to do some range checks on this plane, obviously. We're going to do some taxi runs, check all the systems out. I won't necessarily share all that stuff because it's pretty straightforward. But what I will do when I take it off, I'll talk you guys through the whole maiden process and what's going on and everything we're doing. So hopefully you guys get something out of that. And I think that's an idea I had that would make things a little bit interesting for you guys, the viewers. All right, guys, overall thoughts on this plane, very, very impressed with it. Now, we're not done. Don't forget, we're not done. We still have to do the light kit, which is going to be awesome. I am so stoked with what happened with the light kit, guys. Make sure you watch that video because it is going to be sick. And then we have to finish the smoke install as well too. So that stuff's pretty straightforward, but the light install video is going to be very in-depth because we have to cut the wingtips and all that stuff. The smoke install is going to be a little bit shorter, but I'm going to cover a lot of different things. So, but as far as the core build, guys, we are finished with this plane. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the build videos of this aircraft. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you list them down below. Check out the channel soon for the other videos, the light videos, the smoke install videos. And if you guys have been procrastinating and watching all my videos and haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you might as well do so. When you do hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell so you get notified when my new videos come out. I try and upload about 2 a week is the norm. And that's it, guys. So thanks for tuning in to the Aviation Design Diamond Aircraft build series. We got a bunch of cool things happening in the channel very, very soon. We have a MIBO box to unveil, open up. And there's some, I tell you, there's some really wicked things in that box. It's sitting right over there. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Thank you all for all your support, and we will see you in the next video.